What's up, Steelers Nation? You know, this team is always looking for ways to improve, always grinding to get better, and that's exactly how you stack wins in the NFL. And before we dive into today's big story, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button to support the channel. It really helps us keep pushing out the freshest Steelers news and exclusive updates you won't hear anywhere else. Heading into this season, there was plenty of chatter that the Steelers could target a young, rising wide receiver to pair with Aaron Rodgers and give this offense some much-needed juice. One of the names on the radar? Green Bay Packers receiver Romeo Doubs. But according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, you can officially cross that one off the list. Doubs isn't going anywhere. In fact, Fowler reports that the Packers now view Doubs not as a trade piece, but as someone they want to extend. And honestly, after the start he's had to the 2025 season, it's no surprise. 4 games, 4 touchdowns. Doubs has been a spark plug in Green Bay's offense, and that's exactly the type of production that makes a front office lock in a player, not ship him out. Fowler even wrote that the rumors of Doubs being on the block never made much sense once Green Bay turned the page on last season's disciplinary issues. So Steelers Nation, if you were hoping for a big-name addition in Doubs, that dream is done. The Packers are keeping him and likely paying him soon. Now let's bring it back to Pittsburgh. Why was Doubs even in the conversation? Because our receiving core has been one of the biggest question marks since training camp. Yes, the team has gotten a boost from unexpected names in recent weeks. Yes, Aaron Rodgers has made the most out of what many analysts have called one of the thinnest WR rooms of his career. But with Calvin Austin III's injury in Dublin, the room is suddenly even thinner. Austin went down in Week 4 against the Vikings, and while the early updates on his shoulder injury are somewhat encouraging, there's still real concern about his short-term availability. And make no mistake, Austin was emerging as Aaron Rodgers' second favorite target behind George Pickens. That chemistry matters. Losing him for even a few games is a serious setback. So what do the Steelers do? With Doubs off the table, the options are limited. Free agency? The wide receiver pool is pretty much dried up. Trades? Omar Khan has shown he's willing to deal, but right now there aren't many names floating around that would move the needle. The reality? Pittsburgh may just have to roll with what they've got. The good news is that the offense has found a rhythm, especially with the long-awaited connection between Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf starting to click. We saw it against the Vikings, and when those two are in sync, it changes everything. Metcalf has the size, speed, and physicality to dominate matchups, and Aaron Rodgers is one of the best deep ball throwers the game has ever seen. That duo alone can win Pittsburgh games they might not have won in previous years. Add in Pickens' explosiveness, and the Steelers still have firepower. The question is whether depth pieces like Ben Skowronek, Miles Boykin, or even the tight ends can step up in Austin's absence. Here's where things get really interesting. Pittsburgh is heading into the Week 5 bye at 3-4, sitting comfortably atop the AFC North. The Ravens and Browns are both 1-4, the Bengals are 2-2 and look shaky at best, and the Steelers, despite some ugly moments, have taken control early. That win over the Vikings in Dublin was huge, not just for the record, but for the confidence. Sure, they nearly let Minnesota back into it after leading 21-6, but in the end, they closed it out 24-21 and got the job done. That's what matters. But it wasn't all perfect. One of the lowlights from Dublin came on special teams, specifically a blocked field goal in the second quarter. What should have been 3 easy points turned into a 6-point swing when the Vikings marched down and converted a field goal of their own. Special teams coordinator Danny Smith didn't hold back when asked about it. He said flat out, "It was just a lack of technique by a player. More power to the Vikings defender, but it was a lack of technique on our part." The player he was referring to? Pat Freiermuth. Lined up on the left side of the field goal unit, he was beaten off the edge. The defender swiped his arms down, got past him, and blocked the kick. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was sloppy. And for a veteran like Freiermuth, it's the kind of mistake you just can't afford to make. Freiermuth owned up to it, telling reporters, "Definitely a play I want to get back. Credit to him, he dipped under my punch. I'll get better from it, learn from it. After the bye week, go into Cleveland and get it right." That accountability is good to hear, but it doesn't erase the concern. And that brings us to a bigger issue: Pat Freiermuth's role in this offense. Against the Vikings, he played just 15 offensive snaps. That's shockingly low for a tight end who was once considered one of the cornerstones of this unit. Why so little? Well, the Steelers leaned heavily into the run game, using Darnell Washington and Connor Hayward more often, even bringing in extra linemen like Spencer Anderson. The result? Their best rushing performance of the season. So while the plan worked for that game, it leaves us wondering, where does Freiermuth fit in moving forward? He's on a significant contract, and you don't want that kind of talent sitting on the sidelines. At the same time, if the offense runs best with Washington as a mauler and Hayward as a versatile piece, maybe Freiermuth's snaps stay limited. It's a delicate balance, and it'll be fascinating to see what adjustments Mike Tomlin and offensive coordinator Eddie Faulkner make after the bye.
Enter Kenneth Gainwell. And let me tell you, he didn't just survive, he thrived. Gainwell was an absolute spark plug, carrying the ball 19 times for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. He looked decisive, explosive, and most importantly, reliable. For a player many viewed as a rotational piece, Gainwell showed that he could shoulder the load and deliver. But while Gainwell stole the headlines, something else quietly happened. Caleb Johnson finally got his chance to show what he could do. Johnson's stat line wasn't eye-popping: 6 carries for 22 yards, averaging 3.7 yards per attempt. But the story wasn't about the numbers. It was about the timing. When the Steelers needed to put the game away late, Johnson was trusted to step in. And on that final drive, he delivered a couple of confident, hard-nosed runs that gave the offense a lift. Running backs coach Eddie Faulkner put it perfectly when he spoke to the Pittsburgh media. That was a big boost for him, that last drive that he was in. He was able to get a couple good runs in there. I could feel the pressure off of his shoulders just get lifted. I expect him to just keep getting better and better. That's exactly what Steelers fans wanted to hear. Not only is the coaching staff still behind Johnson, but they see his progress every day in practice. And that, my friends, is huge. Here's the bigger picture. This Steelers running attack can't be a one-man show. As great as Jaylen Warren is, Pittsburgh learned the hard way last year with Najee Harris. When you overuse a back, production dips and injuries pile up. Having depth is the only way to sustain success. With Gainwell proving he can be a reliable number 2 and Johnson showing flashes of his potential, suddenly this backfield looks deeper than it did just a few weeks ago. If Johnson continues developing, the Steelers will have a 3-headed monster that can keep defenses guessing and control the tempo of games. And think about it, a rookie finding his footing by mid-season. That's the exact kind of trajectory you want. Johnson doesn't need to be a superstar today. What the Steelers need is steady progress, confidence in his reads, better ball security, and the ability to provide quality snaps when called upon. Now, I know a lot of fans were frustrated after that Week 2 mistake. Steelers Nation is passionate, and when a young player struggles, the noise gets loud. Some even thought Johnson might end up being another mid-round pick that never pans out. But the reality inside the facility is different. Coaches don't give up on talent that quickly, especially a third-round pick who was brought in with a specific vision. Faulkner's comments show us that the staff sees the grind, the work ethic, and the potential. Johnson isn't just sitting idle on the bench, he's developing, learning, and waiting for his moment. And in Dublin, we may have just witnessed the first sign of that breakthrough. Let's also not lose sight of this. The Steelers' running game finally looked alive in Week 4. Without Warren, many thought the offense would collapse. Instead, Gainwell carried the load, Johnson chipped in, and the offensive line looked physical. For the first time this season, Pittsburgh's ground game didn't feel like an anchor. It felt like a weapon. That should excite every fan, because if the Steelers can consistently run the ball, it takes pressure off the quarterback, opens up play action, and keeps defenses honest. The formula for winning football in Pittsburgh has always included a tough, reliable running game. And this Week 4 showing hinted that the team is moving in the right direction. So here's where we stand, Steelers Nation. Romeo Doubs, once a potential trade target, is officially off the market and likely getting extended in Green Bay. Calvin Austin's injury leaves the Steelers thin at receiver, but the Rodgers-Metcalf connection could be enough to carry the passing game for now. The bye week comes at the perfect time, with Pittsburgh at 3-1 and sitting on top of the division. Special teams breakdowns and Pat Freiermuth's reduced role raise real questions for the coaching staff. It's been a roller coaster start, but the Steelers are in control of their own destiny. Now I've got to hear from you. Do you think Pittsburgh should go out and pursue another receiver, or is this offense good enough with Metcalf, Pickens, and hopefully a healthy Calvin Austin returning soon? And what's your take on Pat Freiermuth's role? Should the Steelers feature him more or stick with the run-heavy sets that worked against Minnesota? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be checking them all week, and I want to hear what you think. And before you go, don't forget, smash that like button if you love getting your Steelers news delivered straight to you, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss an update. Steelers Nation, we're just getting started, and the best is yet to come.